What is more terrifying? A 16-year-old behind the wheel of a car, or a 16-year-old voting? You know, I actually think that there's nothing wrong with lowering the voting age to 16. I don't know why it's arbitrarily set. I mean, we had this debate about whether people should tan at 17, 18, 19. When's that sense of responsibility? I think if you can go to war and you can drive a car, you should be able to vote.
Everything in the country is not democratic. They have a veto on anything that gets done in BC. It's up there. The money needs to go to BC. The blocks don't. They won't want that. They want to go to their own country. Their main purpose is to split up Canada.
This current government was found in contempt. And, you know, people are losing sight of that fact. There's never been a government in Canada, nor in the Commonwealth, that has ever fallen for contempt. And I know that, you know, Gary and a lot of the Conservatives and Harper will blame it on partisanship. However, it was the Speaker of the House who recommended the ruling. And the reason for that was because so much of the information that was being asked for by the other parties was not being handed over. And that included things from Afghan documents all the way to the Bev Oda crisis, the fighter jets, what the cost of the fighter jets was really going to be. So there was all of that, and a lot of that information was being filtered by the Conservatives and not handed.
In 2008, Greens were officially in favor of the NDP Liberal coalition because it better represented how the majority of Canadians had voted, which was not for the Conservatives.
Where do you think it's going for NDP and Liberals? Do you think that someday they'll come together so that they can win a majority from a left perspective? So what it comes down to?
Personally, I think in the near future I can almost see an NDP, perhaps even a minority government just formed by the NDP. But I think that it is very likely if Stephen Harper wins again,
Winners and losers.
either people will accept him as a legitimate leader, or there'll be a coalition government formed with the Liberals and the biggest two parties, three parties, sorry. But honestly, I cannot I can't say
like the water problems, like land conservation and stuff in the same level. What's the Green Party's view on that?
On conservation?
Yeah, conservation.
Yeah, that's going to take coordinated efforts between the federal and provincial and regional. You see a lot of things like urban sprawl, even up in Saanich, they're dealing with these issues. So that involves a lot of lower levels of government as well. At the national level, it's a lot more about national parks. So there's certainly stuff that can be done.
Make sure that when an election is called, as it was suddenly for May the 2nd, that we don't disenfranchise a whole bunch of people who are out of this country at the time, because it is so difficult for them to write into Elections Canada. They suddenly find out that the election is May 2nd. They write into Election Canada, they've got to get, the Elections Canada has to send them the ballot, and they have to send it back. My daughter, who is returning from Rwanda today, she's been overseas for 27 months, can't vote. That's wrong, okay? That's wrong. She should be able to vote. She's Canadian, she's serving overseas, she can't get the ballot in time to get back to put in a vote. That's wrong. So we need to, in this country, make sure that internet voting is done, is secure, and is available to everyone. There's a whole, and on this I think Elizabeth and I probably agree. If we are going to open up a voter challenge to ask people to vote, and 80% we want them to vote, we have got to make it a lot easier.
Even cutting taxes and eliminating waste. Because I don't like high taxes.
Now, if you look at countries around the world that have put in place carbon taxation, they've actually grown their economy at the same time that they shrunk their carbon. So, for instance, if you look at, after this class, go Google Sweden's history. They managed to reduce greenhouse gases to 20% below 1990 levels while growing their economy 40%. The way we would place the carbon tax would also provide compensatory benefits for citizens within provinces, particularly not so much provinces, but if you're a rural Canadian with no access to mass transit, you're going to need some break when carbon prices shift upward. If you're in an urban area and you've got access to mass transit. We also invest in better mass transit. You end up being able to access the benefits of good urban planning, good design, as Chris was talking about. Certainly nobody needed the McTavish Road interchange. No one in my community can figure out why it's there, except as a potential tourist attraction, because it's so bizarre no one will believe it.
Though in truth, it's the coalition that actually brought down the current government, which is why we're in the election. So if they can agree on certain issues like that, I think that they'd have no problem leading Parliament, even being the executive in the country. So.
About this notion of vote splitting. If you look at the results of 2008, this is particularly relevant to you who are young voters. Our problem wasn't vote splitting. Our problem as a country was vote abandoning. Right? People ask me if I want to merge with the Liberals or the NDP. Yeah, I want to merge. I want to merge with 41% of Canadians who didn't vote in 08. Because then I'm a majority government, right? There's 41% and only 38% of young people voted in 08. I'm hoping that's turning around. I'm watching real closely. Our young Greens are working hard. Nonpartisan youth groups are working hard. Vote mobs and Twitters and tweets and Facebook messages to tell your friends to get out and vote. I hope we can turn it around. But that's the critical issue facing Canada. Even half of the people who didn't vote in 08 had voted, the Conservatives would not have formed even a minority government.
And I think that we're getting to that point in our system where we have a lot of older leaders who've been here for a very long time, and we need to start looking to the younger generation, which is it's something that's happening all across the world.